My name is Lila Hartwell, and I'm 31 years old. My father died 6 months ago, and that's when I learned what real betrayal feels like. Dad was a good man. He owned a successful construction company in Portland, Oregon. He built houses, schools, even a hospital. He worked hard his whole life. My mom died when I was 8. Cancer took her fast. For years, it was just me and Dad. We were a team. He taught me how to fix things, how to read blueprints, how to negotiate with contractors. He said I had his brain for business. Then, when I was 16, he met Celeste. She was 42, 10 years younger than him. Blonde hair, perfect smile, yoga instructor. She seemed nice at first. She brought cookies to our house. She laughed at Dad's jokes. She asked me about school. I thought maybe she could be good for him. I was wrong. Celeste moved in 3 months after they started dating. She redecorated everything. Mom's paintings came off the walls. Her garden got torn up and replaced with stone fountains. Celeste said the house needed updating. Dad just nodded and paid for it all. I was 17 and busy with school, so I didn't fight it. But I noticed things. Celeste never asked about my day anymore. She stopped baking cookies. When I talked, she'd look at her phone. At dinner, she'd steer every conversation back to herself. Her yoga classes, her friends, her ideas for the house. Dad listened to her like she was the only person in the room. I started eating in my bedroom. Nobody noticed. When I graduated high school, Dad threw me a small party. Celeste complained the whole time that it was too loud. 2 months later, they got married at a resort in Napa Valley. It cost $60,000. I was a bridesmaid. Celeste picked my dress. It was yellow and made me look sick. I smiled in every photo anyway. I went to college in Seattle to study architecture. Dad paid for everything, tuition, books, rent. He called me once a week. We talk about the business, about my classes, about life. Those calls meant everything to me. But I noticed Celeste's voice in the background sometimes. She'd say things like, "Honey, we have reservations," or, "Can you finish up?" Dad would rush off the phone. Our calls got shorter. By my junior year, he called once a month. By senior year, once every 2 months. I told myself he was just busy. But deep down I knew. Celeste didn't want him talking to me. She wanted him all to herself. I graduated with honors and came home for the ceremony. Dad was so proud. He hugged me tight and said, "You're going to do amazing things, Lila." Celeste smiled, but her eyes were cold. That night at dinner she said, "So what's next? Are you moving back here?" I said I'd gotten a job offer in Seattle. She looked relieved. "That's wonderful," she said. But she didn't mean it. I worked at an architecture firm in Seattle for 8 years. I was good at my job. I designed homes, community centers, office buildings. I won awards. I made good money. I bought a small condo overlooking Puget Sound. I built a life. Dad and I stayed in touch, but it was different. Distant. I'd visit Portland twice a year, Christmas and his birthday. Celeste was always there, always hovering. She'd interrupt our conversations. She'd plan activities that didn't include me. Once, I tried to take Dad to lunch alone. Celeste said she'd already made reservations for the 3 of us. I stopped trying after that. I just accepted that I'd lost him. Not to death, but to her. It hurt worse than losing Mom, because this time, it felt like a choice. His choice. To pick her over me. I carried that pain quietly for years. I built buildings and buried feelings. I threw myself into work and pretended I was fine. But I wasn't. I was angry. And I was sad. And I was so tired. Last year, Dad got sick. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors said 6 months, maybe less. I flew home immediately and took a leave from work. I stayed in a hotel near their house because Celeste said the guest room was being renovated. It wasn't. I could see it from the driveway. Empty and untouched. I spent every day at the hospital with Dad. Celeste came for an hour in the mornings, then left. She said hospitals made her anxious. I held Dad's hand through chemo. I read to him. I brought him his favorite foods even though he could barely eat. We talked about everything. My job, his company, Mom. He cried once and said, "I'm sorry I wasn't there more. I got distracted. I let her distract me." I told him it was okay. But it wasn't. He knew it. I knew it. Still, I forgave him. Because he was dying. And because he was my dad. And because holding on to anger felt pointless when time was running out. Dad died on a Tuesday morning in February. I was holding his hand. Celeste was at a hair appointment. She got there 20 minutes after he passed. She cried loudly, dramatically. The nurses looked uncomfortable. I just sat there numb. The funeral was 3 days later. Big, expensive, exactly what Dad didn't want. He told me once he wanted something simple. A small service, close friends, no fuss. Celeste planned a massive event with 200 guests, a live band, and catered food. She wore a black designer dress and oversized sunglasses. She gave a speech about how much she loved him, how he was her soulmate. People cried. I didn't. I couldn't. I felt empty. After the service, she hugged me and whispered, "We'll get through this together." I nodded. I didn't believe her. 2 weeks later, Dad's lawyer called. There was a will reading scheduled. I assumed it was just a formality. I assumed Dad had left me something, maybe the business, maybe the house. I assumed wrong. The will reading was at the lawyer's office downtown. Celeste arrived in a black Mercedes, new. I came in my old Honda. We sat across from each other at a long conference table. The lawyer, a gray-haired man named Mr. Patterson, opened a folder. He read through the standard legal language, then got to the assets. The house, to Celeste. The cars, to Celeste. The savings accounts, to Celeste. The investment portfolio, to Celeste. Dad's construction company, Hotwell Construction, to Celeste. I sat there, frozen. Mr. Patterson kept reading. I barely heard him. Then he said, "To my daughter, Lila Marie Hartwell, I leave my workshop tools and my collection of vintage blueprints." That was it. Tools and paper. Celeste smiled. Not big, just a small curve of her lips. She'd won. Mr. Patterson asked if I had questions. I said no. My voice sounded far away. Celeste stood and said, "I'm sure your father had his reasons." I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I saw it. The satisfaction. The triumph. She'd planned this. Every step. And Dad had let her. I didn't cry in the lawyer's office. I didn't cry in my car. I didn't cry until I got back to my hotel room. Then I sobbed so hard I thought I'd break. I'd lost my father. And then I'd lost everything he'd built. Everything he'd promised me as a kid. "One day, this will all be yours," he used to say. He'd lied. Or she'd made him lie. Either way, it didn't matter. I was erased. That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling and thought about what to do. I could contest the will. But that would take years and cost money I didn't have. I could walk away. Just leave Portland and never come back. Or I could do something else. Something smarter. Something that would hurt Celeste the way she'd hurt me. By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. And it was about making sure Dad's legacy didn't die with a woman who'd never cared about it in the first place. I started by researching Celeste. I wanted to know everything. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Jenna Cole who came highly recommended. Within 2 weeks, Jenna came back with a file. Celeste had been married twice before Dad. Both ex-husbands were wealthy. Both divorces ended with her getting large settlements. She had a pattern. She also had debt. Lots of it. Credit cards, personal loans, a mortgage on a condo in Scottsdale she'd bought under her maiden name. She was living beyond her means and had been for years. Dad's money was supposed to fix that. The company was her golden ticket. Hartwell Construction was worth $12 million. She planned to sell it. I knew because Jenna found emails between Celeste and a business broker. The sale was already in motion. She wanted it done fast. Within 6 months. She didn't care about the employees, the legacy, the clients. She just wanted cash. That's when I knew exactly what to do. I called 5 of Dad's oldest employees. Men and women who'd worked with him for decades. People who knew the company inside and out. I met with each of them privately. I told them what Celeste was planning. They were angry. They were heartbroken. Hartwell Construction wasn't just a job to them. It was family. I asked if they'd be willing to help me save it. Every single one said yes. Together, we formed a plan. We'd start a new company. We'd bring over the best employees, the key clients, the suppliers. We'd leave Celeste with an empty shell. No workforce, no contracts, no value. She could try to sell it, but nobody would buy a company with no foundation. It was risky. It was complicated. But it was possible. And it was the only way to honor what Dad built. Not by letting her destroy it, but by taking it back. One piece at a time. I registered a new company in March. Hartwell and Company. Construction. I kept Dad's name because it mattered. It meant something. I used my savings to rent a small office space and buy equipment. The 5 employees I'd met with quit Celeste's company within 2 weeks of each other. They gave proper notice. Nothing suspicious. Celeste didn't even seem to care. She was too busy planning her sale. By April, 12 more employees had left. They followed the originals because they trusted them. Celeste started to panic. She called meetings, offered raises, threatened legal action. But she couldn't stop it. Nobody wanted to work for someone who didn't care about them. By May, 23 of Dad's 38 employees had joined me. We worked out of a warehouse on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. We had heart. We had loyalty. And we had something Celeste never understood. Purpose. Next, I went after the clients. Dad had built relationships over 30 years. He knew these people. He'd built their homes, their businesses, their dreams. I reached out to 15 of his biggest clients. I didn't badmouth Celeste. I didn't have to. I just told them the truth. Hartwell Construction was being sold. The team that had worked on their projects was now with me. If they wanted the same quality, the same care, they could work with Hartwell and Company. Instead, 13 of them switched. Just like that. Celeste lost millions in contracts. She tried to sue me for poaching clients. Her lawyer sent a threatening letter. My lawyer sent one back. We hadn't broken any laws. The clients chose us. That was their right. By June, Celeste's company was bleeding money. She'd gone from $12 million in value to maybe 4. The business broker stopped returning her calls. She was desperate. And I was just getting started. In July, I got a call from Mr. Patterson, Dad's lawyer. He said Celeste wanted to meet with me. I almost said no. But curiosity won. We met at a cafe downtown. Celeste looked different. Thinner. Tired. Her hair wasn't perfect. Her nails weren't done. She ordered coffee and got straight to the point. You're destroying everything your father built. I stirred my coffee slowly. No. I'm saving it. You were going to sell it and walk away. I'm keeping it alive. She leaned forward. I'll make you a deal. Come back. Work for me. I'll give you 20% of the sale. I laughed. Actually laughed. I don't want your money, Celeste. I want Dad's legacy to survive. And it won't if you're in charge. Her face hardened. He left it to me. Not you. I stood up. Yeah. And that was his mistake. But it's one I'm fixing. I walked out. She didn't follow. By August, Hartwell and Company was thriving. We'd completed 6 projects. We had 8 more lined up. Revenue was strong. Employees were happy. I was exhausted but proud. One afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. It was Celeste. Her voice was different. Smaller. Lila, I need help. I waited. She continued. The company's failing. I can't sell it. Nobody wants it. I'm drowning in debt. I stayed silent. She kept talking, her words tumbling out. I made mistakes. I know that. But I can't lose everything. Please. Help me. I thought about it. For a long moment, I actually considered it. Then I remembered the will reading. The smile on her face. The way she'd erased me. No, I said quietly. You made your choices. Now live with them. I hung up. She called back 3 times. I didn't answer. That night, I slept better than I had in months. In September, Celeste filed for bankruptcy. Hartwell Construction officially dissolved. The house went into foreclosure. She moved into an apartment across town. I heard all this through Jenna, my investigator. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I just felt closure. The company Dad built was gone. But the heart of it, the soul of it, lived on in what I'd created. That mattered more. One Saturday morning, I drove to Dad's grave. I hadn't been since the funeral. I brought flowers and sat on the grass beside his headstone. I saved it, Dad, I said out loud. Not the name on the building, but the people, the work, the legacy. I saved what mattered. The wind blew through the trees. I stayed there for an hour. When I left, I felt lighter, like I'd kept a promise I didn't know I'd made. By October, Hartwell and Company had grown to 45 employees. We moved into a real office building with conference rooms and a break room. I hired an office manager, a kind woman named Delilah who kept everything running smoothly. We landed a contract to build a new community center in East Portland. It was a big project, 6 months of work, great visibility. I stood at the site one morning with blueprints in my hand, watching the crew pour the foundation. One of the older workers, a man named Ray who'd worked with Dad for 20 years, walked up beside me. Your dad would be proud, he said. I looked at him. You think so? He nodded. I know so. You didn't just save the company. You saved us. I felt tears prick my eyes. I blinked them back. Thanks, Ray. He patted my shoulder and walked back to work. I stood there a little longer, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. That same month, I got an email from Celeste. The subject line said, "Please read." I almost deleted it. But I opened it. It was long, rambling. She apologized for everything. She said she'd been selfish and greedy. She said she understood why I hated her. She said she was moving to Arizona to live with her sister and start over. She didn't ask for anything. She just said she was sorry. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop. I didn't respond. Not because I was cruel, but because I had nothing left to say to her. She'd taken so much from me. My father's time. My inheritance. My trust. But she hadn't taken the one thing that mattered. My ability to rebuild. I'd done that on my own. Without her. Without Dad. Just me. And that was the greatest victory of all. In November, I hired a PR firm to help get the word out about Hartwell and Company. We wanted people to know we were different. That we cared about quality, about community, about people. We launched a website with photos of our projects and testimonials from clients. We sponsored a local Little League team. We donated materials to Habitat for Humanity. Slowly, our reputation grew. We weren't just another construction company. We were the construction company people wanted to work with. By December, we had a waiting list of clients. We had to turn down projects because we were booked solid for the next year. It was overwhelming and amazing. I worked 70-hour weeks, but I didn't mind. This was my purpose. This was my legacy. And nobody could take it away. Christmas came. I spent it alone in my condo in Seattle. I'd thought about going back to Portland, but I didn't want to. I ordered Chinese food and watched old movies. My phone rang once. It was my college roommate, checking in. We talked for an hour. She asked how I was doing. I told her the truth. I'm good. Really good. She said I sounded different. Lighter. I guess I was. I'd let go of so much anger. I'd stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I'd stopped needing my father's approval or Celeste's downfall to feel whole. I'd built something real. Something mine. And that was enough. That night, I stood on my balcony looking out at the water. The city lights reflected on the surface. I thought about Dad. About Mom. About everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. And I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I was free. In January, I moved back to Portland permanently. I sold my Seattle condo and bought a house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, a garage I turned into a workshop. I filled it with Dad's old tools, the ones Celeste had left me in the will. I'd thought they were worthless. But now I understood. Those tools built everything Dad ever created. And now they'd help me build too. I started taking on smaller projects in my free time. Bookshelves for friends. A deck for Ray's house. A treehouse for Delilah's kids. I found peace in working with my hands. In creating something from nothing. It reminded me of Dad. Of who he was before Celeste. Before the sickness. Before everything fell apart. It reminded me of the man who taught me to hold a hammer and dream big. By March, Hartwell and Company was one of the top construction firms in Portland. We'd been featured in 2 local magazines and a news segment. I did an interview where I talked about Dad's legacy and why the company mattered. I didn't mention Celeste once. She wasn't part of the story anymore. After the interview aired, I got dozens of emails. People thanking me. People sharing their own stories of loss and rebuilding. People saying I'd inspired them. I read every single one. Some made me cry. Some made me laugh. All of them reminded me why I'd fought so hard. Not for revenge. Not for money. But for connection. For purpose. For proof that good things can rise from broken pieces. That legacies aren't about names on buildings. They're about the people who carry the work forward. And I was carrying it. Every single day. One afternoon in April, I was at the office when Delilah buzzed me. There's someone here to see you. She says it's personal. I told her to send them in. The door opened. It was Celeste. I hadn't seen her in almost a year. She looked older. Her hair was shorter. No longer blonde but brown with streaks of gray. She wore jeans and a plain sweater. No designer labels. No jewelry. She stood in the doorway, hesitant. Can I come in? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat slowly, clutching her purse. I'm not here to ask for anything, she started. I just wanted to see what you built. And to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. For all of it. I studied her face. She looked sincere. Broken, even. I took a breath. Why did you do it, Celeste? Why cut me out? She looked down. Because I was scared. Scared you'd take him from me. Scared I'd end up alone again. So I held on too tight. And I pushed you away. She paused. I know that's not an excuse. It's just the truth. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to yell. To tell her how much she'd hurt me. How many nights I'd cried. How close I'd come to giving up. But another part of me, the part that had healed over the past year, just felt tired. Tired of anger. Tired of pain. I can't forgive you, I said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can let it go. I can stop carrying it around. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's more than I deserve. She stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. What you've built here. It's incredible. Your father would be so proud. I didn't respond. She left. I sat at my desk for a long time after that, staring at the blueprints in front of me. Then I got back to work. Because that's what I did now. I built things. I moved forward. And I didn't look back. By summer, Hartwell and Company had expanded to Eugene and Salem. We had 70 employees and revenue of $18 million. I promoted Ray to project manager and Delilah to director of operations. I hired a CFO to handle finances so I could focus on design and client relations. The company ran smoothly. Better than I'd ever imagined. I still worked long hours, but I made time for life too. I started dating someone, a kind architect named Marcus I'd met at a conference. I took weekends off. I went hiking. I read books. I laughed more. One evening, I sat in my backyard with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. My phone buzzed. It was an email from a journalist. They wanted to do a feature on me for a national business magazine. The woman who rebuilt her father's legacy. I smiled. Not because of the recognition, but because it was true. I had rebuilt it. Not the way Dad left it, but better. Stronger. Mine. Today, I'm sitting in my office looking at a framed photo on my desk. It's me and Dad from when I was 10. We're standing in front of a house he'd just finished building. I'm holding a toy hammer, grinning. He's got his arm around me, smiling like I'm the most important person in the world. I keep that photo there to remind me why I do this. Not for money. Not for revenge. But because building things matters. Because legacy isn't what you leave behind in a will. It's what you create with your own hands. It's the people you lift up, the work you're proud of, the lives you touch. Celeste wanted the company. She wanted the money. She got neither. I didn't take them from her out of spite. I took them because they were never really hers to begin with. They belonged to the people who cared, who worked, who believed. And now, they belong to all of us. Dad's name lives on. Not in the company Celeste destroyed, but in the one I built from its ashes. That's not revenge. That's resurrection. And it's the best inheritance I could have ever received.